Uh, I don't know why it took so long to log your species' language. I guess it was difficult to find your primary logic server. It is in a very disconnected region, far from your primary oxygen distributor. However, I suppose I can understand the necessity to have a degree of freedom for your aural and visual sensors. Oh, I suppose I am being too formal in your presence. For such a creature as yourself, I shouldn't use language which is demeaning. I suppose I have a level of obligation to soothe and satisfy your curiosities, as I too wish to have my curiosity fulfilled. This, I believe, will help to soothe an anxious mind, which I believe you possess. And, of course, fulfill my mission of gathering information. So, I suppose you are wondering, why are you here? Well, to answer your question, it is simply because you were selected at random from the 8 billion or so people of your world. To be more exact, you were one of many from your determined regions. I believe you have referred to them as countries? We have studied the interactions of these countries, their total numbers, their material production. We have assessed your world. We have found out how you divide yourself and how you have not divided yourself. You have devised how we desire to interact and understand with your species. So, from random, we have chosen you. I shall not tell you the exact nature of your odds, as that is not important. Regardless, you are here now to be studied, no, or rather, be questioned. We have machines to study your physical nature and composition, yet that cannot tell of the individual mind of you. Oh, thank you for seizing the opportunity granted to you. Yes, I have been speaking of we, yet I have not made clear what we is. We is my species. For simplicity's purpose, it is your contrast. It is your not, if you will. Yet, if you desire me to elaborate on my nature, I can, as I am at full permission to dispose of information. I felt if that would be the case. You seem to be very curious creatures. Then I shall indulge your request. My species, for lack of a better term, is similar to that of many cephalopods of your world. We are simple in design with a singular unit of body and many limbs. We are semi-amorphous, just as the octopods of your world. We have the capabilities of a illusionary trickery. Well, if you want to call it that. However, that is to say, we can change our appearance to best suit a situation, largely by moving our own body and by changing our pigmentation. With all that said, we are not necessarily fully cephalopod in appearance. In fact, in my current state, I am a falsehood. Oh, that too is an interesting question. We have not just studied your species, but many others of the Earth. However, we have determined that your species is the most intellectually advanced and distinct, as well as the most predominant of all the species, as you seem to have a mastery of tool usage. Well, at least more than other species. So, we have determined that your species is the only one necessary to have direct contact with. Of course, we could always have miscalculated. Are there any other species which we might have an interest in? Ah, now, do you perhaps mean that we might enjoy the company of this creature? Or is this creature truly a ruler of your world in intellect and technology and development. Yes, I predicted such an answer. I believe your species calls such a question rhetorical. However, you may correct me if I am in the wrong. I thought as much. Now, I suppose I should begin the probing. Oh my. Why have you disfigured your face so? Oh, yes. I forgot the other connotation behind that. Forgive me. Forgive me. Regardless, I shall begin the, what is the other word? Ah, yes. The interview. Firstly, let me ask, how knowledgeable are you in the course of your species and world? Perhaps a better word for course would be history. However, most of the aspects of your planet exist and happened before your story, history, began. So, I choose to say course. Well, regardless, I shall ask you some questions regarding certain periods. I am sorry if it upsets you in any way. Firstly, we have, in many instances, viewed your planet from our distance and from our travels. At first, when we peered into our stars above, we saw this fiery star and this fiery planet. We took no notice of it. Then this planet was of water, and then of land and creatures. Seeing this with our technology, we began to travel towards your world at the fastest speeds we could. And as we traveled, we peered at our distance to keep track of it. First, we saw enormous flying bugs, then enormous terrible lizards, and finally, as we almost reached our destination, we saw you. It was a terrible distance, but please, tell me, how long ago were the bugs? How long ago were your lizards? When did you first appear? Oh, I have seemingly overwhelmed you with such a question. I do not mean to be rude. If you have attachment to your big bugs and your big lizard ancestors, I truly apologize. I was not trying to invoke any grief or sorrow. I was merely trying to inquire on the age of your planet, for we could not tell how old our images were in the brief periods of stasis, and your world seemed to change very rapidly in form and content. Oh, you do not grieve for the bugs and lizards. You're too young to know about them until now? Well, thank you. Perhaps one of my colleagues will be able to extract such information. I suppose it would not be fair to ask you of your long-lost ancestors if you know too little. Not necessarily your ancestors? Well, I suppose I more broadly mean that you are very distantly related to them. Yet, let us hear you speak of your more common ancestors. I suppose first I should ask about the Neanderthals. How are they fare? They no longer remain. How unfortunate. Although, I suppose that is to be expected. Yet we certainly found members of your species which shared characteristics, especially those in the northern hemisphere. Around your northernmost, I believe the term is continent? Regardless, I shall move on. Please, tell me about the Sumerians. Do they remain well? Oh, and the Egyptians too. Sumeria is no more. Strange. Yet you say Egypt still persists. Even stranger. But as for Sumeria, the land itself still remains, correct? So, who has taken the place of them? Iraq. I suppose it has also gone further than just that of Sumeria. Please, tell me which peoples Iraq encompasses. The Arabs? Are you sure that is all? For there are more lands in which the Arabs live, and many of those lands did not at first have Arabs from our observations, which is natural, so we have observed of the changing tides of human population. So perhaps you mean the peninsula of the Arabs, up to the 2 rivers and the mountains of Anatolia? But even then, what of the Babylonians, and the Assyrians, and the Hittites, and the Hebrews, and the Phoenicians, and the Medians, and Persians, and of the later Greeks, and Armenians, and Parthians, and other races of Anatolia, and even later of the Turks? What of them? Perhaps I demand too much again. Well, surely you alone cannot recount the history of all the tribes of your species on your planet. I should wait for a more fit interviewee. Not to say that you are not suitable. Perhaps I should ask less demanding questions. Not to demean your own mind, but rather to analyze your species' psyche. Yes, that is what I shall do. First, let me inquire into your own personal well-being. I believe the phrase, "How is your day?" is what is used. I've heard that such an answer is false, or perhaps more accurately, incomplete. Please, you can feel at liberty to express your hatred of the world, or your complete and utter astonishment at the beauty of the day and life. Also, feel the freedom to express it in as descriptive means as you desire. Oh my. That is very interesting. Very great. Very great. Now please, inform me a little on your upbringing. Did you live with 2 custodians? 1? 3? More perhaps? Were you raised in this scanned tongue or another? Were you well off or without? I will let you answer such. Yes. Oh. Oh my. Yes. These are good details. Thank you for searching your mind for such. Oh, and sorry if it troubled you to do so. From my understanding of the little I questioned before you, it can be quite troublesome to have to recall a horrid childhood. So, please, if you had such, I am offering my condolences. Regardless, I shall inquire further. How would you say such upbringing shaped you? Were your custodians influential, or did your cohorts craft you further in their image? Did a minister or instructor bring great change in your intellect, or did their messages and instructions fall on deaf ears. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Uh-huh. Ooh. Oh, you have done an excellent job. I understand that it can be difficult to analyze how you are being afflicted from the point of view of the afflicted, but you have done your best, and your best is great. How shall I continue with this question? I have been moved greatly by your speech, though it may be short, but I have lost track of my questions. Let me recollect the thoughts which I have. Ah, yes, I suppose I can inquire about this. So, I shall. Please, can you inform me what your economical role in society was, and will be again? I believe the term profession could be used. However, I am assured that not all economic roles are considered professions by the peoples of the world. Some would say that they do not require professional training. However, that is not my concern with this question. I am concerned about where you fall, or perhaps don't fall. So please, again, feel at liberty to inform me on your economic placement and status. Do you despise it, or are you madly infatuated with your position? Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, I have very much noted the peculiarities which exist in your system, or rather, systems. I do not wish to speak too broadly. I understand your world is filled with conflicting modes of production, some that are, of course, more efficient and logical than others. In fact, I've studied these systems and their evolutions. I believe that the current predominant one stems from the system of the realms north of your most predominant or prominent sea, the Mediterranean, I believe it is called. Interesting as that mode of production, the former one, of course, plagued the lands in its darkest intellectual hour. I believe you humans used the term the Dark Age, or at least just for that general area. So to have the predominant system of the world to be based on such is, as I would say, less than desirable. However, I am not in the place to talk. It is your world, after all, not ours. Human minds may rationalize differently. So, as they say on your planet, I shall not get political. Am I using that term correctly? I am? That is good. Well, as it seems as if I have asked you the required questions, which generally exist. This is for the primary collection of knowledge. Now, I shall perform a series of, quote, creativity tests. If my understanding is correct, humans have a variety of methods of thinking. This can be expressed in the answers they give to questions. So, I shall ask a series of new questions and analyze your answers for such. Does that sound good? That is great. Although, I suppose I should. You would have much choice in the matter beyond not speaking. However, I do have nodes connected to your mental processors, which will analyze changes in chemicals which can occur from the mention of certain words or phrases. So, any protest would not be of much effect. I know you've made your decision, but I thought I should inform you. First, I will ask you to describe a series of animals. Remember, we do have these creatures on document, so you will not be able to lie about their shape or species. I wouldn't much imagine that you would. Now, when you hear the animal, give me the first detail about the creature that comes to mind. Do you understand? Good. Now, first, the dog. Quite a simple creature, I suppose. A very liked one as well. Next is the cat. Yes, great answer. Next shall be the lizard. I suppose broad topics garner broad answers. Next up is the spider. Typical. Perhaps too typical. Next is the hippocampus. Did I misspeak? Is that not a creature known to you? Oh, my apologies. I did in fact misspeak. I mean to use the more common name in your tongue. Sorry. The creature is more commonly called the seahorse. Ah, that is a better response. Now, on to the next section. I am going to give a series of shapes, and from those shapes, instead of describing them as you did with the animals, I want you to tell me what emotion they elicit. Now, I understand that is not necessarily the most feasible task, but I want to see how well your connecting lines are for your logic. So perhaps I shall start first with the circle. An interesting answer. The circle is a very useful shape in its design and very interesting in its characteristics. So I suppose an answer like that will be reasonable. Next is the square. That is also interesting. A square is also very useful in its structure, but not too unique. A step down from the square, we shall go next to the triangle. From our studies, it seems that your planet has a large amount of knowledge about the triangle. Well, of course, we do too, but I very much find your understandings of it to be enjoyable. I believe the term you use is trigonometry. Fascinating. We've come to slightly similar answers, just different ways. Regardless, I ramble. Next, the pentagon. Oh. I suppose that is a way to think about that. There isn't much unique about the pentagon. It's very similar to other shapes, but I digress. Next, we shall go to the hexagon. Yes, that is an interesting answer. There's something very beautiful about the hexagon. Structurally, of course, is what I mean. But I think any analysis of it is very good. After the hexagon, we have everyone's favorite, the heptagon. That is a reasonable response. I was kidding when I said everyone's favorite. Very little people even remember the existence of the heptagon, or at least from the catalogs of the language so far that I've seen. It was hard to find the word. After the heptagon, we have its 8-sided counterpart, the octagon. Yes, there seems to be very much within your counting system this enjoyment of even numbers. I don't quite know why, but it seems there's a satisfying aspect to always being divisible. I like my prime numbers, so I suppose I can't complain. After the octagon, there is the nonagon. Or I've seen a nonagon before, I suppose I should say. Although, perhaps this is just conflicting language sources. You've seen clearly the flow of information is not the best. But there is something much more natural attached to it than with the heptagon, even though it remains odd. And our final shape will be the decagon. Yes, it is a very interesting aspect of the predominant counting system. It's base 10, which I suppose makes sense. From our analysis, on average, the amount of human fingers is around 10. Of course, given a margin of error. With that spiel out of the way, I suppose it really is time to finish this interview. Now, you are probably asking what is going to happen to you after this process. Very simply, we are going to put you back into your natural habitat. Well, I don't know how natural it is, but we'll put you back in the place we found you. First, we are going to have to erase your memory. That is just standard protocol, because we can't have people, I suppose the term best fit for the situation is snitching on us. Although it's not like there is any authority that would get in our way. We just find that for operating, it is best to have our presence be concealed. So, I do apologize, but this interaction will shortly be erased from your head. That is not to say that I have not enjoyed my interaction with you. You have been a lovely interviewee, and I will say, I hope once we can properly establish relations with your planet, I hope to meet you again one day. Perhaps we can be friends, and maybe with some remnant of the information in your head, it will spark up memories of this interview. And I hope you have not been given to distress or given to concern over this interview. I hope it has been as pleasant as it has been for me. So, with that being said, in order for your memory to be properly erased, we have to cover all our grounds. So I will be leaving the room as to not be affected by our own mechanisms. So, this will be our final meeting for now. Goodbye. I will see you, hopefully, in the future.